Well, I get a lot of questions about dry fires and what it does to your bow, and so I wanted to give you an actual example of what happens. And so I chose one bow that I trust to do well in the dry fire test, to not completely expose. So check out this dry fire test. Hope you enjoyed that. So what I want to do with you now is go over the bow a little bit with you. It has not moved since then. Taking it off the hooter shooter. Got our strings there. So right now, when I have customers bring a bow in that's been dry fired like this, I tell them, don't move anything, get it in here, keep your face away from the limbs, because these cables right here are under a lot of tension, and the first thing I want to do is replace them. So as we get them into the shop, we set them down and no one is allowed to touch them until we have an opportunity to get them in the press. The next thing we do is we back out our limb bolts 4 turns. And as I get in there, what I'll check is more than likely this axle is bent. So I don't even take it as a question, I replace axles. Doesn't matter what the bow is, what the brand, same thing on this end. Obviously, we're going to need new strings. We busted these in the dry fire to show you what it looks like. Rarely am I going to allow a customer to leave here with a dry fire bow and not replacing the strings. I think it's a safety issue and it's a concern for me, and I would hope that many of you understand why. Is once you've put all that energy on the strings because the arrow wasn't there, you're risking further damage by continuing to use a string that was overstretched and had all of that tension taken out of it. And I mean, these are cut up bad. The string snapped, which is typical. I don't expect the string, again, to hold through an 80-pound dry fire. And by the way, at 30 inches, is a 30-inch bow at 80 pounds. I don't expect anything to survive that. Simple fix. Get the strings off, replace your axles, and then I'm going to take a black light and I'm going to inspect my limbs and make sure there's nothing cracked on them, because this is a safety issue. Dry fires happen, but again, you don't want to be shooting a bow with cracked limbs. The main places that I look for cracked limbs is I take them out of the pockets and I inspect them. I expect the brakes to be where it curves over, and so I check them. We make sure they're safe, and then even when we rebuild the bow, the first thing we do is put on the hooter shooter with safety glasses on and run numerous cycles through it without an arrow, just drawing it back with a safety and making sure we're not hearing any crazy cracking. We're going to check in here on our axles and make sure that we don't see any cracks in there. But again, on any bow brand that I use, what I do is I replace the axles, I replace the strings, I replace anything that goes related to the axle. So any of the shims, I'm gonna come back in here and replace the grease that goes into your limb pockets. And then we run a few cycles through it for safety. I don't want anybody being hurt. Hope you enjoyed the dry fire test and how I fix dry fired bows.